Yeah. How about that for an intro? Rock out. Woo. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Wise Agent Societies. I think this is the 29th show of Sharpen the Saw. I did not put that in the title. I will change that. But welcome, one and all, to a great edition that we have. I have a very special guest today who is a friend and associate of mine from way back to our hometown, original hometown, little small town in Iowa called Marshalltown, Iowa. Mr. Adam Williams, real estate investor extraordinaire. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, buddy.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here, and looking forward to in the next few minutes to chat and catch up.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's a good day for doing that. What's the weather like over there it's South Carolina, right?
South Carolina, yeah, Columbia, South Carolina. Well, it was 45 degrees this morning, and it's going to be 75 degrees today. So a little chilly to start out, but great weather. So pool's a little cold to swim in. Kids are out there dipping their toes in it every day, and it's not quite ready, but it'll be there soon.
They ask every day, Dad, can we get in the pool?
They don't really ask much anymore. They kind of tend to do what they feel like they should do. So 9, 15, and 19 this coming weekend. So 19-year-old, especially does whatever he wants, but all good kids.
Yeah, good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm sure just knowing you as their father, that you've produced wonderful offspring that never, ever get in trouble, because we never got in trouble.
No, that's right.
We were.
I was a perfect angel, and I explain that to them daily, as my wife snickers in the background and reminds me that our 15-year-old is me. Reproduced, and that scares the living crap out of me.
Yeah, isn't it crazy? I mean, I think back to, I just don't even understand how we're lucky to be alive. I think in a lot of ways, like,
yeah,
it's just crazy to think back. My kids aren't like that at all. My kids are like sane and good boys.
That's good. That's good. Well, you did something right then. So, but yes, when I think back to some of the things that we did, and I compare them, like, is it because we didn't have the technology? Is the technology that they're on every day bad, the TikToks, all that, or is what we were out doing with nothing to do what's bad? So it's hard to know.
Hey, we made it so far. We're both doing okay, and in spite of or in because of all the things that we went through as kids. So, so that just brings us to basically, Adam and I have known each other since, I don't know if we knew each other in middle school. Did you go to Miller?
I went to Miller. Yeah. We probably knew each other. I think our parents were friends. If I don't, I remember hearing my parents talk about Kirby Hasselman, and so I think we go back quite a ways from pretty young age.
Maybe, yeah. Did we go to the same church? Maybe, yeah.
Could have been, yeah.
Did you go to Congregational Church?
No, I went to Central Christian Church in Marshall.
I went to Central Christian Church at first too, and then Congregational, I think, later. So it could have been, so for a long time.
Yep.
Yeah, so cool. So Adam and I have known each other forever. Adam, now, a lot of you know about me and what I've done in my life and with my real estate history and all the other businesses I've been involved in. But Mr. Adam here is now a real estate investor, and you do more of the commercial side of things, right? And we're going to get into exactly what kinds of those things. Well, we can spill the beans a little bit, like storage facilities and things of that nature. But why don't you go ahead and just tell us your history of, I don't know, I can't remember the story of how you got to where you are now. So maybe just a quick brief.
Yeah. Well, it started out, I didn't know that I enjoyed and had a passion for real estate until you learn to find out that, wow, this is the greatest thing on earth. And that goes back, I'd say 5 or 6 years ago. And it really started with getting into residential real estate in our first rental. And that kind of spurred the, okay, I've heard about this. I've heard there's ways to get into real estate, because one of the biggest things is people think there's a big barrier to get into real estate. But we got our first rental and realized, okay, we can do another one, and we can do another one. And so the journey started with that residential real estate rentals. And now I keep that piece. That piece is very valuable and I enjoy it. But now my real estate ventures have turned to bigger and big focus on commercial real estate right now. At that time, I still had a full-time executive position. So the rentals were kind of an entry into real estate part-time. But that's the great thing about real estate, is you can make it your full-time income on multiple sides of the real estate. And so that's where today, able to leave that W-2 job and just focus on real estate, buying real estate, managing real estate, owning real estate, and also getting investors for real estate.
Yeah. That's awesome. What two questions there has spawned. So I take notes while I'm doing this. So if you see me writing stuff down, that's so I remember to ask you stuff. But one, so how long has it been since you quit your regular job?
So that's been less than 2 years that I gave up the W-2 paycheck.
Nice. And then what was that field? You don't have to get into specifics, but just like
private, managing private clubs. So for the last 10, 12 years, been general manager of different private clubs. Orlando, moved to Columbia, South Carolina to be the general manager of a private club. And recently general manager of a private country club here in Lexington, South Carolina. So great business, great, great jobs, but no matter how great it is, it's still a job. Nothing's wrong with working, but that wasn't, I didn't want to continue to have that W-2.
Job ain't nothing but work.
That's right. That's right.
No, so okay, so these private clubs are country clubs.
Country clubs, yeah, and some of them what would be called a city club. You take a big downtown Columbia, South Carolina, on the 25th floor of the BB&T building, you have a private members club, but there's no golf course attached to it. So dining, private events, you still have to be a member to be there, or a guest of a member. But it's a little bit different than a country club, whereas you have all your amenities, your swimming pool, your golf club, your tennis, and so on. So just a different segment of the private club business.
I get it. Like, what's the one called? Is it called Lifestyles? Is it type of city club? Lifestyle?
I've heard of that. Yeah. And like Des Moines has a city club there. I can't think of the exact name of it, but it very well could be. Yeah.
My wife loves them. My wife
great thing to have.
Lifetime. That's what it's called.
Lifetime. Yes. They're great. You see the relationships, the networking, and you're part of a club, which is a great feeling. City clubs are a little bit more difficult business because they used to be the best dining in a town. Now restaurants have outpaced a private members club in those city clubs, and even most country clubs. Except for the few, you take Augusta National, you take the ones that you see on the TV on the weekends. Some of those are clubs that you and I, no matter how well we do, would probably not having dinner there. So no offense to you. I'm just saying, for the most part.
That's it, man. Now you gave me a goal. I'm going to make sure that I get to go eat there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Shay and Adam having dinner at Augusta National. I'm going to shoot for that.
I'm putting it down. Augusta National, Shay, Adam. See, wrote it down. Now it's going to happen.
If we show up with a green jacket, I don't know what will happen, but we'll find out. So
green jacket or no jacket, and then they give you a green jacket.
Maybe they give you a green jacket. I don't know.
I've been to
I was going to say, to be continued, the Shay and Adam Augusta National Adventure.
Hey, I love it. I think it's going to be fun. That brings up another fun, quick thing, or two quick things. Quick story. I once was with a client, one of my favorite clients in San Diego and in Las Vegas. And he took me to the club section at the Del Mar racetrack. He owns like 11 horses or so. And I went with him and his wife. And for whatever reason that day, I didn't wear a jacket. And you have to have a jacket to get in the club and the club level. And so they literally gave me a green jacket to wear in the club. It was an old dusty green jacket. And I was like, I felt like an idiot. Of course,
that's their lesson to you. That's the club's lesson to say, next time, bring a jacket.
Yeah, I was like, God, I was embarrassed. I was just like, man, what the heck was I thinking? I mean, I had a shirt and tie and everything, but I didn't. Sure. I just didn't have the jacket. It was funny. I took it off when I got up there and just set it down. But, gosh, what was the other part of that? Oh, well, I won't talk about it. Talk about it offline. Okay. Basically, my wife had an opportunity to go to the what was this? The big the Masters, was it?
Yeah, exactly what
we're at Augusta National. See, I don't even know.
Yeah, so the Masters is at Augusta National. About 45 minutes down the street from me.
She could have gone to the whole thing for free and stayed in a house that her company rented, 2 houses, and she said no, thank you.
Wow.
Well, next year, I think we can get in.
There we go. Well, we'll put it this way: when there is a rule called the Augusta or the Masters rule or the Augusta rule, where real estate investors talk about you can rent out your house for 2 weeks without paying income taxes on it. That's why they call that the Augusta rule, and it's all because Augusta National and the Masters down there. So, yeah.
See, it's all coming together. It all ties together.
All blends together. Unfortunately, or fortunately, everything to me falls back to real estate. So,
hey, you and me both, brother. Like when I'm sitting at a place and I hear somebody like start talking out like at another table, and they're like, "Oh, something real estate." I'm like,
"Yeah, that's right."
So, hey, I'm Shay Black. Pleasure to meet you.
That's right. That's exactly.
I just want to go for the sandwiches, really, at the Masters. I heard the sandwiches are to die for.
Yeah. And those prices they put on Facebook? Those are the legit prices. The sandwich is only $2. Yeah. The soda is $1.50. It's you'd think it would be $22, but nope, it's $1.50 for pimento cheese sandwich. So
one of my buddies is a badass lender in San Diego, Las Vegas, and all over the western region. And he went and he talked about all the samplings of all the sandwiches, and I was like, man.
Business shuts down. We'll get into it, but we were closing on a commercial property in Augusta the week of the Masters. And you want to talk about nobody answering a phone call or reply. That is the world in this part of town when the Masters is going
on. Dude, I want to come to town. That's it. Yep. I need to come to town. How close are you to Raleigh? Just curious.
About just a little over 2 hours to Raleigh. So about an hour and a half to Charlotte, maybe 3 hours to Raleigh. So it's a great play. 2.5 hours to the beach, 2.5 hours to Atlanta. So we're very centrally located. That's part of the reason why we love South Carolina and Columbia.
Yeah, I love it. I'll look at it more. And we have really good friends over there in Raleigh too. So we could make a combo trip out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm getting pumped. The more I hear about South Carolina, the more I like it. So cool. So yeah, fun stuff. Then now you're doing bigger projects for real estate investing. Explain maybe just a little bit of what the projects you do now, and then you take on investors, right?
So one of the things after starting with real estate and leaving that full-time job to dive headfirst into real estate, a lot of the stuff that we were doing, we do a flip here and there, and a lot of real estate investors do. We're not flippers. However, that is a segment of real estate investing that can be profitable. It's not the most tax advantageous segment of real estate investing, but it's a great way to make some cash and keep buying properties. So we do, you know, a little a flip here and there just to keep some cash coming in. Most of the stuff that going back to that we started was, you know, buying a house, renovating a house, and then renting a house.
Mhm.
And that's the great thing about real estate is, you know, you have probably heard of the Burr method: buy, renovate, rent, refinance. That was a big part of how we got to where we're at with real estate. You buy a property, and then you refinance it out when you get renters in, and you have a cash flowing property that you can go and do the same thing to the next one. Rinse and repeat. That's the last R of the Burr method, is repeat.
And when you do the
So
refi, you're pulling cash back out, right?
yeah. So
Cash out refi.
that's it. You get cash out refi, and ideally getting all of the money you have in the house and now back out,
Mhm.
and the house is worth more money, and you got a
Mhm.
cash flowing asset. So that's how my wife and I started with with residential real estate, and that allowed us to get to where we had quite a few rentals, and that was what gave us the basis to be able to jump and say, okay, now just going to do real estate full time. And by the way, she's a real estate agent, as you and I have talked, part
Mhm.
time. Does it just for some of our purchases or our sales or friends and family. So that works out great as well.
Yep.
So, you know, I jump into the full time real estate investing and realize we can do this on our own, or I have a partner who we founded our company, and him and I together have been able to do bigger, I don't want to say better, bigger projects, different segment of real estate. We also have a restaurant together. But now, fast forward to today, we are primarily focusing on commercial real estate.
Mhm.
And what we do there is we have two self-storage facilities, one here in Columbia, South Carolina, just closed on a 500 indoor climate control units and 7 retail um, tenants. So one plaza in Augusta last week.
Oh,
And then that just so not just self-storage is the focus, but that's kind of what we're focusing on right now is self-storage.
yeah.
It's a great segment. It has its up and downs as well as any other commercial real estate segment, but it's a great asset to have. It's should always be in demand. That demand fluctuates,
Yeah.
but they should always be in demand based on what causes somebody to rent a storage unit.
Yeah, I've always thought that self-storage was a really good,
Yeah,
investment. I mean, you see them pop up everywhere, and they're full. I mean,
yeah,
people love keeping their junk, and that's because I think a lot of people don't quite move like my wife and I do. We're on move 21, 21.
wow,
So we keep pretty nimble with all of our junk,
yeah,
and a lot of it gets thrown away, sold, bought. Every time we move, sometimes we upsize, sometimes we downsize. It just depends on where we move to and what that situation is. So, and the opportunity. But not everybody does that. So everybody has extra stuff that they need to keep, so they put it in storage, right?
yeah.
Um,
Well, let's face it, this goes back. Self-storage has a demand and a drive based on the real estate market.
mm,
What's happening in the real estate market right now? Well, we're in that little stale part because of interest rates,
mhm,
and you have such a big gap between what most homeowners have and what they would have to buy in at today.
mhm,
People aren't buying and selling their homes, so that does limit the move-ins and move-outs from storage a little bit.
mm,
But what's the other thing with real estate right now, and that drives self-storage? Houses are being built smaller than
mm,
they typically were before. But
mhm,
Americans, I mean, we are purchase happy people. And
yeah,
so houses are being built smaller, and so there's less storage for those Americans now. And even with these new houses, that storage becomes that necessity, and it has a huge sticky factor. It's
mhm,
hard to it's hard to get into storage and say, I'm going to be here for 3 months and be out in 3 months. It doesn't really happen.
Right. They go in that with the intentions of that, then probably end up staying for years.
That's
I feel
exactly
like.
right. That's right. Even through rate increases, again, back to real estate, storage is a month to month. Residential real estate, typically you have year leases.
Oh,
So, with storage, tomorrow your storage unit rate could go from 120 to 160, and all you're going to get is a letter and an I'm sorry, or a letter and no, I'm sorry, and this is
yeah.
what the rate is. And so
Wow.
you have to choose, do you go and shop around, or do you just,
Hey.
suck it up and stay in that unit?
Yeah, my guess is that people aren't going to take the time and effort to move all that stuff. It's more convenient just to stay.
That's right. That's right. And so that's why with our company and our focus is adding that convenience, having the top of the line, safe, secure, climate control, utilizing technology so that you can, check in and rent a unit without having to see somebody in person. Just our company and our partner in these self-storage, the operating partner, Your Way Storage, we all feel very strong about adding technology to all of our facilities. So that's just a big focus of ours, and that's I think the direction that people want to see with their self-storage facilities, and safe, secure, and you feel good about walking in there and putting your stuff in there.
Yeah, it's clean. It's safe, and like when you say
Yeah.
safe, you're talking like cameras and that kind of
Cameras,
stuff,
absolutely. Yeah.
lighting,
Yep.
and like
Making sure
access.
that there's nobody sleeping. I mean, you wouldn't believe that people would use their storage unit as their residence, but it is something that can be a problem in many storage facilities. So, especially with climate control.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was gonna ask. Basically, I have wrote down here like strange incidents. Do you have a couple of funny stories or
I'm
one
sure
thing?
you can name, so we talked, one of our investors for the Augusta self-storage was asking, are we going to have 24-hour access to the self-storage there? And mind you, this is, you take this is a former gym or grocery store, and then was a gym, and
Oh,
now it's been converted into climate control self-storage. So there's other retail. There's a bar there. There's a restaurant, nail salon. So your typical retail plaza. And the answer is we will not allow 24-hour access into the self-storage, and probably not access after 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. because there's a bar and a restaurant there.
ah,
So if you think about it, it just mitigate the possibility that somebody is going to want to go into the self-storage
yeah,
facility after hours. In my opinion, in that location, nothing good's going on in there after 11 p.m.
yeah. No, you could just see people get all, hopped up on the booze, and they're like, "Whoa, let me show you my collection of rare billiard balls that I have in storage here. Let's go check
That's
it
right.
out."
Just mitigate the risk of that. Where some self-storage does have 24-hour access. This one we won't need. So there's a lot. There's a lot
No.
of incidents that can happen. But again, currently when we purchased it, there is no after hours access to that facility. When they leave at 5 p.m., you can't get in. So that's one of the first things that our company is doing as we get in there, is adding that access control to where, you or I or whoever's renting, I can't always get into my storage unit before 5. If I have something I need to get out of there, it's probably going to be 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So that's just part of the value add that we're going to bring to this facility.
So it was 5. Now it'll be a little later.
It was 5. There was no remote access. Now we'll add that remote access where you use your phone, keypad, and you can get in until 9 or 10. So
And
just
that's
part of the upside from the purchase, acquiring that. They weren't using technology. We're going to implement that technology.
I love it.
Yeah.
What I have some more questions. Can I just ask you a few more
Yeah.
questions?
Shoot.
What's the average percent increase in rents, and how often, like, how does that look over a course of a year or even a couple years, like just on average? Give people
With
an idea.
the self-storage industry?
Yeah, with the rentals on the percentage increase to, is it something you do often? Is it, you said it's dependent on different factors, but like just on an average year or two, what would the increases look like for a renter, like,
So if
and
you
or for
go
the investor to receive, you know?
right, if you go back to 2022, late 2021, 22, when the real estate market, there were so many move-ins and move-outs.
Mhm.
That caused a very inflated rates, inflated occupancy, unsustainable.
Mm.
Really,
Mhm.
that's where you had 103% economic occupancy rates, which it just
Mm.
isn't even good for any industry.
Mhm.
And that caused, massive rate hikes. That's coming down from that, from
Mm.
those levels. So the rates are much more stable. They're much more flat from where they were a couple years ago.
That makes sense.
However, what you're still seeing is, and don't quote me on this. I'm going to use rough numbers, but
Yeah.
for years, Americans, the penetration rate for storage rentals was, let's just say, 9% of Americans utilized a storage facility. Now, that penetration rate is up over 10%, close to 11%. So there's more people that are renting storage.
Hmm.
So the rate increases now are kind of coming from, they're driven directly off of demand, supply and demand in the market. So as you know, you see new pop-ups being built all over the place with self-storage
Mhm.
because it looks like everyone's going to be a home run. That's not always the case,
Hmm.
but maybe in those areas where the new one's coming up, you might, if you're renting a unit from a public storage, you might not see an increase over the next year. But if you're in an area where the occupancy is 92%, you might see a 15% annually increase
Okay.
in that rate. Some of the REITs, so if you look at the big players, Public Storage, U-Haul, Extra Space, those, they all have different revenue management that they use. Some of them, you could say it's similar to a hotel where the rates change daily.
Mm.
And then you have some people in the industry who don't change their rates. They stay the same. A U-Haul, for example. You're
Mhm.
not going to have a big increase. You might only have one every 8 months or every year with, if you're renting from a U-Haul, whereas a
Oh,
public storage, you might have a couple throughout the year.
okay. So kind of different models in managing that.
Yeah. And supply and demand kind of set those rates. So now obviously you don't want to have your market rent be $50 for a unit today, and then next week your market rent's $100, and then your market rent goes back down to 75. You have to have some stability in there, and or at least you should. Otherwise, it can be very confusing for your customers.
Yeah, so I just did quick math, right? Like on a $50 a month deal, if it did go up 15% annually, that'd be 57.50,
Yeah,
right? So
right.
not like huge. And of course, on as it gets bigger unit and it costs more, then that percentage will go up more.
That's right.
But that's like bearable, right? So that's not
Yeah.
like crazy. I mean, are any of them big enough to get a $200 a month rent? Probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'd be curious. I should have done a little research before I got on here, see kind of what the rental rates are back in Iowa,
Yeah.
back home. But when you get to some of the areas, you might average for 10 by 10. So in the industry, you typically talk about a 10 by 10, even though your unit mix, you have 5 by 5s, 5 by 7s, 10 by 12s, 10 by 20s. I pay down the street here from my house 2 years ago. We rented a storage unit and I was paying $260 a month. So that was
Okay.
2 years ago.
For a 10 by 10?
It was a little bit bigger than that.
Okay.
So I think it was a 10 by 20. Today, I pay $419
for the same.
and same unit. Yeah. And I can't move my stuff out. I have every leftover tile, whatever it was from some house, some job, something is in that storage unit. And so it makes it very challenging to move out. So I suck up the $419 a month and I say, it's just where I'm at. So you can see that gives you an example here in Lexington, South Carolina, what that rate increase is.
Yeah, that's cool. That's what I was trying to get at, so that you get a grasp of, what that can look like for a consumer, but even better, the investor. So that's cool because you're on both sides of it. So you're not only the president of Hair Growth for Men or whatever that's called, but you're also a client.
That's exactly right. As you can see. And then Shay, back to how that always transitions to other segments of real estate. So if the rental rates are going up, there's obviously demand. And is that demand from people moving into the area? And there's a lot of reasons people choose storage. And they talk about the D's often in that: divorce, downsize, death, displacement, and there's probably a couple other D's. Well, people coming to the area is a big reason for that. So now go back to that residential real estate. If the rental increases or the rates are increasing in self-storage, I'm seeing that rental increase on my residential rentals here in the area as well, because this is a growing area of the state. This is a growing state in the country. So part of what I was saying, why we love South Carolina, I always put myself in the shoes of a renter, or I try to, with today's rental rates. But, we have a 1-bedroom condo that we get $1,050 a month for in a very not so great part of town. And 2 years ago, that rent was $750 a month.
Wow.
So, so when you see a correlation between self-storage and residential real estate. And again, it's just another segment of real estate that it's great to be diversified. Again, not doing anything different with residential real estate. Still love it, still buy it, still rent it. But then I say, what other part of real estate can we be into, and that we can have a little bit of diversification, but also the same penetration rate and the same, touching the same people that live in the community.
Yeah. I love all that. The thought of that and the reasoning for that is great because it ties together. Also, I think partially, and just this is my thoughts. What do you think on when you're saying that occupancy is high currently and rates are going up, right? And in your area particularly, but anywhere across the country right now, inventory is so low. So people are moving to places that are growing and they're building new homes. Like in your area, I'm sure there's a ton of new home building.
It can be a challenge to get approved. I think you and I talked about that. It's one segment of real estate I haven't done. My partner has done community development.
Okay.
Almost, throughout the United States, we're suffering from an inventory problem.
Huge.
Take away
20-year lows.
Right. So, and so you add high interest rates on top of an already tough, inventory in certain areas. But there's a lot of bureaucracy challenges to have these communities approved to develop. So we as a country need to develop more real estate. We need to have more houses, but it can be a challenge getting through the permitting and zoning and all of that stuff with these municipalities, that it causes some builders to say, all right, I'm not going to try it. And
maybe small scale builders, right?
Say that again.
especially maybe like small scale builders,
That's
like,
exactly right.
yeah.
Take your big players, your publicly traded companies,
Mhm.
those they have no problem,
Mm.
cost averaging their communities.
Yes.
Whereas if Shay and Adam are going to go out and develop, the Black Williams neighborhood,
Mhm.
it's going to be very challenging for us to develop this community and go through the approval process. And I'm sure some areas of the country and some areas of each state are easier than others, but overall it can be a big challenge to get the approvals,
Yeah.
for that. So
And
it
costly.
doesn't help.
Costly too. Like you
Yeah,
have all these environmental studies, you have water runoff studies, and or implementation, and then also the infrastructure and curb cutting, you name it, access to main roads,
yep,
and all that stuff. It has to be a fairly good sized project for the ROI to make sense on that.
that's right.
And so if you're trying to do I don't even know, like a ten house community, that's probably way too small to make it any kind of sense. So then, you got to get probably up into I don't even know. I'm just throwing out numbers in my head, but like maybe you got to get into 30, 40, 50 home communities for it to even pencil,
Makes
you
sense.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's something that, maybe one day we'll try it. Maybe it'll be something where we say, okay, we have the resources and the team to do it. Right now, it's just not anything that I would even attempt to do. So,
Yeah.
but we need it.
Not there yet.
Yeah, we need it. The communities need more housing, and that's why there's a big drive for multifamily, for real estate investors to buy multifamily, because these apartment complexes, rents are typically only going up, and
Yep.
the demand's there, and we don't have the houses being built like we should.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about that on our phone call. That there's I don't really want to get into all of this today as far as NAR lawsuit and stuff. If we want to touch on it, we can. But I'll tell you what, like none of that is relevant. It was their frivolous lawsuits to begin with. The issue, and then there is some pent up frustration from the consumers and from just the population in general, because but it's misplaced in putting it on realtors. The realtors are not the issues. The issues I'm not saying that can't be revamped. I believe it can, and it's going to start, but it's not as meaningful as people might think it's going to be, the things that are
Yep,
being implemented. But what the issue really is, and that you had mentioned there, is the inventory issue. So if the government wants to be involved, the DOJ wants to be involved in whatever in which they're trying to be, that's fine. But I feel like their focus should be placed on how can we get builders to build? How do we get developers to develop and builders to build?
that's right.
Let's incentivize that. Let's figure out that. How do we make affordable housing? Now, people talk about that a lot. And what I think gets misconstrued there is just housing for low income families, which that's important too, but that we need housing for all
All,
families,
all families.
but and especially lower and maybe middle class and all of that. But it doesn't matter which class you are. There's no inventory. So what if the government was going to be involved or not involved, they need. I'm not saying they have to take over and do it. But I'm saying if they're gonna do that, then why not focus there? But secondly, why don't we just make it easier for people to build and incentivize
That's
builders
right.
and developers? That's the main thing. I don't have the solution for that. We could brainstorm more on that. I like thinking about that kind of stuff, but I think that would go a lot further and solve all of our problems. Maybe that is something we can start on a small scale type of thing, even you and
Right.
me, and then figure out how to make that scalable in a bigger way.
Absolutely. Well, talking about interest rates and inventory. So here we are, the average American, let's just say, you probably don't know the number, let's just say is at a 3.8, 3.75 with their interest rate. Maybe it's a little bit
That's
higher,
right.
probably,
Average, probably about right.
yeah. And then today, interest rates are 7%. So
Hmm.
you
Yep.
have nobody wants to sell unless they're almost forced to sell.
Hmm. Yep.
So everybody thought that this the interest rates were going to drive real estate prices down into the dirt.
Yeah.
And it hasn't happened. And so to your point, so now affordability, accessibility for the average American for that home ownership it's terrible. And a lot of that is driven by the supply.
Yeah.
And if it's hard to get them to be built, or it's or it's just hard or not easy, or there's too many barriers, then how are we ever going to have the supply that we need as a country to really make home ownership affordable?
Yeah.
Because supply and demand set the prices.
Yes. Yes. And here's the thing. It's not going to get better. I mean, unless something, really big happens and changes and somebody comes up with the cool idea, or the government does something to make that so that super starts happening at a very high level. And I'm talking triple, quadruple what's being built today for the next 10 years. And then maybe it'll be like close. So
might be balanced out then.
Yeah, by then, but like that's not even on the table. Nobody's even talking about it. So my advice in that scenario, so it is what it is. We can boo-hoo all we want. And, oh gosh, the government does this or whatever, whatever you want to do. The point is there are ways for people to get involved in real estate and do it. It doesn't have to be where you live. Find some place that's inexpensive. Michigan, Detroit, that's a good spot, to have investment properties. There's different places in Pennsylvania. There is Cincinnati and what's the other one in Ohio? Cincinnati and
Cleveland.
Those are both really good spots to buy rentals with high flow through. Not a lot of appreciation, but high flow through. Jacksonville, Florida. There's a whole bunch of them, right? So you don't have to buy where you live. So if it's not affordable where you live, two things: move. But if you're like, I'm not moving, why should I have to move? Whatever. I'm like, hey, you're the one that wants to be involved in real estate and have the generational wealth. So either make some sacrifices there, or just buy someplace where it is affordable, or affordable for you and your situation, and get started that way. And then you're in the game. Now you're playing, because it's not going to be too long when there's not options to play anymore. Those options are shrinking as we go, is what I'm saying. So get involved now. Figure out, there is a way. I promise you. I figure out ways to do things for a living. I do that in a much bigger scale than what a lot of people do, and you do too. I know you do. Which I want to talk about next is kind of how people can get involved in smaller ways in what you're doing. But anyway, to wrap that part of it, is the inventory is low. It's not going to get bigger. So this is going to continue to be a challenge until something changes in the inventory level, like in a big way.
Absolutely. So I will touch on two ways that, if I could give advice for somebody to get into the real estate market, because there's a lot of people that are sitting out there on the sidelines that want to get involved, want to get into it, but they don't necessarily know how to get into real estate. And so a couple things that I would suggest, and you and I have talked about this, I always suggest kind of starting out small, because everything in the real estate, it may seem like it's rainbows and butterflies and everything's a home run and more millionaires or whatever the statistics say, more millionaires and billionaires are created from real estate. Well, I know a lot of people that have lost a lot of money in real estate through mistakes. And so smaller target, smaller miss, learn mistakes on the smaller end. So one of the things that I always suggest is, if you're wanting to get in, drive around in the town you live. So start in the town you live and drive for dollars. And there's houses there that you're driving down the street and you've probably driven by 200, 300 times. You never realize that actually might be a distressed property. And there could have been a person that passed away or whatever the situation was. And you have the opportunity to possibly go and take that piece of real estate, purchase it. And I'll touch really quick on a couple ways that you can purchase that real estate that doesn't cost you $200,000 out of pocket. But you can purchase that real estate and you can renovate it, and then you can rent it out. And then now you're in the market, you are in the real estate field, you're a landlord, which isn't always fun. You deal with toilets and tenants, but it's a way for your future and your growth and make money through appreciation. And so I always, people have asked me, Adam, I found this $120,000 house. And I think it can be worth 200,000. How do I buy this? There's a lot of, ways that you can go out and get loans for real estate. It doesn't depend on how much you make at your job. It doesn't depend on what your tax returns are. It doesn't even necessarily depend too much on how much money is in the bank. A lot of it is based on the property itself. And so you can go out and get loans to purchase these properties. And then the great thing about residential rental real estate is that when you go to refinance that, and what you and I were talking about, cash out refinance, I'm in it for $100,000. I want to get that out. It is solely based on the property, how much rent that property brings in. It has nothing to do with how much money you make or anything outside of that. You're going to get a loan on what that real estate, that property brings in for rent.
Yep.
And then now you got your money back and you have a house. You are in the real estate market.
Yeah. I forget the name of that loan program.
Well, and they call them like DSCR. So debt service credit ratio, as long as the house is bringing in 1.3% of what the expenses are in rent, that's it. It doesn't matter who you are. You can go out there and get that loan. So
what's the down on that? Do you remember?
Say that again.
What's the down payment on that? Is it 20% probably?
Well, usually they'll give you a loan for 75 to 80% of the value of the house. So if you have put some renovation in it and increased the value, you now can have a $150,000 house where you have a mortgage for 100,000 and you have equity and you have a cash flowing property.
Yep.
So it's just one way to get in, to start small. Drive for dollars, talk to your family, talk to your, hey, would you be interested in partnering with me, or mom or dad or aunt or uncle, would you loan me $100,000? I'll put the mortgage on the house in your name. It's secure. So there's ways to get in small. And then that kind of takes me to now you have large commercial properties or multifamily or whatever that somebody wants to get into. You can invest. And that's something through our projects. We syndicate some of our real estate purchases. And what that means is you take a pool. So you have a $6 million purchase. But if you went out and got a loan for $6 million, for one, the bank's not going to give you a loan for $6 million for a $6 million purchase. But they'll give you a loan for 60% of the purchase price of that, maybe 65%. And so what you do is you go out and you get investors and you raise money for that other equity portion. And then you then give a return to your investors over time throughout that the life cycle of that property. So that's something that we do with whether it's hotel, self-storage. We syndicate those investments, and that allows other people and other investors who don't want to go out and do this as a full-time job, or the beginning investor who wants to get in and say, okay, I got 25,000. I want to put this to work for me in the real estate market.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is what are the pricing ranges? Like, you can do 25,000, some people do 50, some do 100, some do more.
Yeah. A lot of these syndications, you're going to have a minimum investment of 25. That's kind of the baseline that I see in the commercial real estate syndication. But you know what? Here's another thing, Shay, that people don't realize. You have a 401k or an IRA with your job. You can do a self-directed IRA. You don't have to take all of it out. You can do a self-directed IRA for a portion of it and invest that self-directed IRA or that self-directed 401k into that investment that somebody has to offer. And now you are in the real estate game. You have your 401k or you have your retirement and it's working. And it's just a great way to get into real estate.
Yeah, and I think you don't get penalized for pulling it for that, right? Because it's a real
No,
estate
you could be
investment.
transferring. It wouldn't be one penalty. There's some restrictions on it.
Mhm.
You have to be careful, but you would go with a self-directed IRA company that makes sure that you don't make any mistakes. They actually have to approve the deal. So you
Yeah.
might say to them, Mr. Self-directed IRA, so and so, I would like to invest 25,000 of my money into this deal. They look at all the documents for the deal, and if it's good, they'll say, yeah, there you go. So it's just another way that people don't know that you can use and utilize to get into the real estate market.
Yeah, and I don't even think that hits your income that either, because you roll it right back into an investment. So
All the
it,
returns go to your
yeah,
retirement. It,
right.
it is tax if and you know what's even better. Let's just say it's a Roth 401k or a Roth IRA
Mhm.
that you invested $25,000 into this deal. That means the profits all are going to be tax free because it's a Roth investment.
Mhm.
So now, yeah, you can put them in
Up
mutual
to
funds and
up to what per year? Like, is it 25,000, 50?
if for right now, the limitations on the Roth, there really is no limitations on the gain. So you could
Oh,
invest
really?
25,000 and that Roth IRA real estate investment returns you 250,000. It's all going to be tax free. So
Oh, that's sweet. As
um,
long as it goes
yeah.
back into the
Now,
Roth,
I'm
right?
not a financial advisor and I'm not a
Right.
tax attorney, so
Nope.
those
Just
are just rough ways.
off
But
the
those are
top.
a couple easy accessible ways for somebody out there that says, I want to get into real estate. I want to be, I want that, I want to own a piece of something versus you can go out and invest in Apple, but you don't see the Apple headquarters. You don't feel like you have a stake in that. Whereas real estate, you're buying something real.
Yeah, an asset, a physical asset.
That's right.
If the value went to almost zero, you'd still have the house and the
That's
property,
right. That's
and
right.
that's worth something,
Yeah. And
you
what
know?
would cause that to go to zero? Just like what we said, there's what would happen in the
Man,
world right now for real estate to tank? And unfortunately for these new home buyers and these people coming, our kids, what's it going to be like for our kids when they want to try to buy their first home? It's
yeah.
going to be it's going to be a challenge.
Blackstone and all of them will own all of it, and you won't even have an opportunity to buy. You only
That's
have
right.
opportunities to rent.
Yeah. So get in
So
now before Blackstone takes it all. And
they're
you
buying
can,
everything.
yeah,
So when people are sleeping and waiting for the market to go down, the giant corporate investing machines are gobbling it all up, because right now
yeah,
is a great time to buy. Right now is
yeah.
an amazing. Investors don't buy when it's a bad time to buy. They buy
That's
when
right.
it's a good time to buy, which is almost any time. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm not saying go out there and over leverage yourself or make bad decisions. Get with
Correct.
me, get with Adam, whoever, get with a seasoned real estate agent to go over your options and see what makes sense and do something responsible. But do it. I mean, if that's important to you to have financial freedom and long-term wealth and generational wealth, then you got to get started somewhere. And it can start very small. I'll give you one quick example. If you bought a house, let's just say in Cincinnati for about $40,000, I think that's the minimum you can get a loan on. Somewhere in there, but then you got to put 20% down. That's 8 grand, right? So 8 grand, you can get some of these with long-term Section 8 renters in them. They've been there for 20 years. They're going to be there for the next 20 years. So call it 15 years, going to be the next 15 years. Make sure it has upgraded guts, and a roof. So all that you don't have to mess with, because you wouldn't want to have big expenses with that. They're paying like $1,200 a month, guaranteed from the government. I mean, you're going to recoup your investment so fast, and it cost you 8 grand, and out of pocket. For example,
Yeah.
that's just one example.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you
And
can.
then real estate world, the rental, that we always talk about the 1% rule. So if you go to buy that for $40,000 house, you should bring in at least 1% of that as monthly rent. So 400. Well, there you go. That's the 3% rule
Yeah.
there in Ohio. You're getting in, you got $1,200 a month. And so it is achievable. It is there. You just have to do something and not sit on the sidelines and wait for something miraculous to happen, because
Yeah.
it's not going to happen unless you make it happen.
Yeah. Nobody's coming to save you.
That's right.
You got to save
That's
yourself.
right. That's
And
exactly right.
align yourself with people that know about this stuff, think about this stuff, and are higher minded thinking, and they're abundant thinking instead of scarcity mindset. All of these things are important. This is what I focus. I coach about mindset and making things happen, and aligning yourself with people that will help you to achieve your goals, to move forward, and whatever those goals are. Mine just happen to be a lot around real estate and making money.
That's exactly right. And you have to have a person like yourself. This is all of it. Real estate is a team. You have to have a team in place. And if you are starting out, I guarantee some of our friends could call Shay and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about buying this house at the foreclosure auction, the sheriff auction in Polk County, Iowa. Shay, could you tell me what you think that this property would be worth afterwards?" And without speaking for you, I guarantee you'd probably say, "Yeah, I think it would probably be, hold on, let me jump into MLS. I think it would be worth $240,000. So try not to pay more than this." Because guess what? You know that's going to come back to you as one day you're going to sell their house or buy a house for them.
Oh, 100%. I'm all about adding value for the sake of adding value. So when you do that, you get so much in return. So when you come from contribution and helping folks, which is just what I love to do, it makes it easy. I mean, that's the best way to do business, if you ask me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Why don't what could you think of to maybe wrap up our call here in a few good words, a main point to leave with people, to think about for the rest of the
well, one of the things that when I talked about syndicating real estate, we call those alternative investments, because they're not your stocks and your mutual funds. They're alternative. I think everybody that's listening to this, and everybody, I would certainly love for all of my friends and family, think of alternative ways to create that generational wealth that I know you want. And I know we all want to do better. We all want to provide more for our kids. So you got to think of alternative ways, because it's not always going to be through an IRA or a 401k or Social Security. And so my suggestion is just, it doesn't all have to be done through real estate, but it is certainly a good way and can be a very safe way to create that generational wealth, or some passive income, or just something that you feel good about, you can put your hands on, your eyes on, and one day it'll pay dividends on the work that you put in, and doing it now.
Yeah, well said. I mean, that is exactly right. Make a plan, work the plan, and have fun while you're doing it. That's what it's all about. It doesn't have to be hard, doesn't have to be complicated, doesn't have to be stressful. Although there's always a little bit of stress involved in real estate stuff, but that's when you leave it up to the professionals to handle the stress for you, unless you want to take on the stress yourself, like a lot of investors do, and that's where you save the money. The money's in the stress. So, so thank you. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Really enjoyed catching up with you. I learned even more than when we talked the last time. So, I'm always taking notes. So I have a page full of notes here. Really enjoyed having you on. So thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all very much for coming to watch the show today. The Wise Agent Society, Sharpen the Saw. We're on at every Tuesday from 11 to 12 Central Time. Looking forward to see you on the next show. I hope you all have a great week. Also, feel free to reach out to Adam. His information is at the bottom there. Take a screenshot with your phone. Or you can rewatch this recording and reach out to him if you have questions about getting into real estate investing, partnering with him, He is an amazing stand-up fellow. I only, associate and do business with and have people on my show that are top level, trustworthy people. So Adam is totally a resource for you to reach out to in all of those segments. So
thank you, Shay.
You bet. Have a great day, everybody.